grew up in a family of Aston Villa fans, but I'm actually a Wolves fan, which doesn't go down very well. But yeah, I had an uncle that was a Wolves fan, and I don't know, I just felt more of an affinity to Wolves than I did Villa at the time. So my very first game was a Boxing Day game. I got tickets for Christmas. I was probably about, I don't know, 12, 13. And I just remember it being freezing cold and just getting that buzz of, like, you know, walking down to the stadium and all the fans coming out at the train stations and all the pubs, and just making that journey to the ground. And then, yeah, the game itself, I think it was against Bradford, and I think we lost 2-1. But I just remember it being absolutely freezing. My uncle played a big part in my football, and he used to let me go and play with his boys team just to get some extra training in. It was actually probably him he was never actually my coach, but he felt like my coach, and he was great, and he gave me a lot of support and advice, and just, I don't know, just made that whole experience of me playing a little bit better, I guess. And because he was a coach, he knew that side of the game as well, so it didn't feel like an uncle giving advice, it felt like a proper coach. I didn't play until later on, actually. I didn't start really until I was like 10, 11, and I'd actually played netball before that, and the netball coach at the time sort of said to me, you know, we're going to do some football trials, do you want to come? So I ended up going and never really looked back, and it was just straight into a girls' team. I didn't play for a boys' team like most others probably did that are my age. So yeah, straight into a girls' team, Tamworth Ladies, and went on from there. I think probably my very first memory was probably going to watch my brother play. You know, just that Saturday morning, sort of freezing cold, getting dragged to watch him play, and then just sort of picking up a football on the side of the pitch and entertaining myself, I guess. Just one brother, Ben. He moved to Australia about 10 years ago, so I don't see him as often as obviously we did when we were growing up. But yeah, he was my first introduction to football, and he's actually left-footed, and I think that's probably why I'm left-footed, because everything he showed me was he used his left foot, so I think that was more of a learnt trait than being born left-footed. So yeah, he was an okay footballer. So yeah, we did all right growing up. For me, it was just about enjoying it, going out with my friends, playing, and then I was picked up by Cov City at 13, I think I was, and then yeah, played for them for the next maybe 7 years, I think. And spent a bit of time at Wolves. So yeah, it was more just about enjoying it and playing the game and being around good people. And the thing is, obviously I retired at 20, so my career was only really 10 years long, which isn't that long really. So yeah, it was more just about playing with the friends that I've got now. You know, I've got lifelong friends from playing football, and I'm really grateful for that. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've taken from it, is those relationships are super strong and came out of playing in good football teams with good people. I was involved in a team actually that were in a real relegation battle, and we were playing Liverpool, and we had to get a result. We had to go there and get a result, and it was one of those games. It was, you know, it was untidy. It was just, we weren't great. We were really fighting for our lives, and we actually ended up winning. I think it was 2-1 in the end, and I remember like last minute the ball's come into the box, but for them to equalise. And out of nowhere, I've just managed to clear it off the line, and I think it's such a small moment, but I retired not long after that moment, so I think that one for me is one that stands out, because I think it just showed a bit of resilience, I guess, and a bit of fight. Not having the choice to stop playing, I think, is tough. I think everybody wants to own their retirement, shall we call it. So I didn't get that opportunity. You know, I ended up having to have hip surgery and never actually returned to playing, because I just went straight into coaching and managing, because I felt that that was always going to give me more than playing was going to give me, and I actually enjoyed it more. At that time, it was a thought for somebody of my age to make it as a footballer. I don't think there was too many role models at that point. You obviously knew of like Kelly Smith and people like that, but not enough for it to be a real ambition. So yeah, just enjoying the game in general.
Yeah, and you appeared on Wayne Rooney's Street Striker as well. What was the experience like? How did that come about?
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one. It was advertised in the paper at the time, and my mum sort of said to me, you know, why don't you just apply and see what happens? So I did, sent my application in, and I was invited to a trial day in Birmingham. They were doing them all over the country, but Birmingham was my nearest, and we just spent the day, you know, just doing crossbar challenge. We did a bit of an assault course where you had to, like, I don't know, chip a ball into a skip, and all different bits that looked like the programme. So it was all filmed. There was a lot of people, and it was happening all over the country, and they only needed 24 people. And I remember just getting the call the next day just to say that I'd made it, and I was going to go and meet him and be on his show. So it was a bit of a surreal experience, and it was a long time ago now, but it was a good experience to be part of. Obviously at that time that I was on that show, he was huge. He obviously had a great career, but at that point he was unbelievable. He was probably playing the best football of his career. So yeah, he was very shy, as you would expect, but he was great with us. He was really good. He gave us a lot of time, and obviously outside of the filming that you saw, we spent a lot of time with him, and yeah, he was great. And I think I was probably one of the older contestants on that show at that point, so the ones that were a lot younger than me, I think probably took a little bit more from it with being so young, but he was great. I couldn't fault him.
That first step into coaching, how did that sort of come about?
It was actually a teacher at school. My PE teacher at the time, Claire Barron, she offered me the opportunity to coach. I think I was in year 11 at the time. She offered me the opportunity to coach the year 7s, just their football team, and I actually remember the very first session that I delivered. I hadn't really planned it. I just sort of turned up thinking, I know football, it's fine, I'll just put them into a game and we'll do a bit of shooting and whatever. And she actually said to me, and she probably doesn't even remember this conversation because it was just such a flippant comment, but she sort of said, if you're going to go into a coaching session, you have to plan it because the players will know you haven't planned it. And that still sticks with me now, and I'm big on, I expect the players to turn up and be prepared, so I hold myself to that standard too. Whilst I was playing, I became I think they were under 11s at the time at Cov City. So I would do that on a Saturday and then play on a Sunday, and that was my real first, working with a group that were consistent. They would, obviously they come to training, they're your team, you pick the team, you tell them they're not playing, you obviously have to deal with their parents as well, that's a whole other conversation that happens at that age group. But yeah, they were great. They were a really good young group that were keen, and it was nice that they were part of the same club, so they could come and watch on a Sunday and then we would coach them on a Saturday. So yeah, it was my real first introduction to it.
You had the spell at New York Red Bulls, coaching in the USA. What was that like compared to coaching in England? It
was very different at the time. I was actually only 19 when I went out, and that opportunity came about from a coach that I'd had at Wolves, a guy called Nick Pearce, who had always sort of looked out for me and always, got me coaching opportunities, whether it be in schools or, just going with him and doing a bit of coaching. And he actually was in America, and he called me and he said, look, we really need some female coaches out here. They're trying to grow the game, and we need some females that are gonna come and help that process. So the age at the time, you needed to be 21, but they actually made an exception for me to go out and have that opportunity. So I was really grateful for that. And then once I got out there, it was brilliant. Obviously the weather makes a difference because it was lovely. Getting a tan was nice, but in terms of my role, it was very much working with the youngsters at the New York Red Bulls and creating opportunities for them to stay in the New York Red Bulls system, and then work with the coaches outside of that. So it was a good experience, and one that I'd love to relive, and I think I didn't appreciate it probably as much at the time as I do now looking back on it.
Yeah, and just going back to the Coventry days, of course you work with Joe up here, but you did there. What was your kind of time like together down at Coventry? Yeah,
we had a lot of success. We won the league together. I think it was 2018, if I remember rightly. Got promoted to the Championship, and then managed to keep the club in the Championship, and then obviously we lived through the liquidation, and that wasn't a great time off the pitch, but as soon as we were in training and we were on the pitch playing games as a two, I think we really complement each other in those moments, because we don't have to communicate to know what the other one's going to go after. One might have an on-pitch focus that day, and the other one might be going and making sure the staff have got everything they need, and I think we bounce off each other in that way still now to this day. I think the timing of how it was announced and that whole process of telling people that they've lost jobs and that they're going to have to leave Carve, and they're going to have to go and find new clubs and new jobs, that wasn't easy. And then that situation changed within 2 weeks. We were saved, bought out, and then all of a sudden you've got a 10-point deduction that you've got to fight. And that last kick of that game against Watford for that goal was just, it was an emotion I don't think I've ever experienced, and I'll probably never experience it again, just because that one moment I think summed up 6 months of heartache, pressure, you know, all of those things that we don't want to live through in sport. That one moment, I think for me personally, because I'd been at the club so long and it felt like my club, it was just a whole weight was lifted, and I'm grateful for Molly Green for that moment. I obviously spent a long time at Carv, and I'd been there so long, I needed something new and I needed a fresh environment that was going to challenge me, because I didn't feel like towards the end of my career at Carv that I was being challenged in the way that I wanted to be challenged as a coach. So yeah, I went in initially as an assistant, and then that situation quickly changed, and I think within 2 months of me taking the role I was interim, and we ended up, you know, we had our highest finish that Burnley had ever had as a women's team. We played at Turf Moor for the first time, which was history for Burnley, and to be part of those moments for a club like that was really special, and I really enjoyed my time there.
Yeah, and you have dealings with Vincent Kompany. Did you learn off him? What sort of stuff did he tell you? Yeah, he was great. From the second I walked in the building there, he was unbelievable with me, and everything was open door with him, and it wasn't just a token of, yeah, you can come and watch us train. It was, he made a real effort. You know, I would go out and watch their sessions, and he would actually come over to the side of the pitch and give me detail on what they were doing, why they were doing it. And, you know, Craig Bellamy was the same, spent a lot of time with him, you know, just having a coffee and a chat, and it's those little moments that you can just take away from people like that have played the game at such a level, and, you know, are obviously going to go on and have really good managerial careers. So again, I was really grateful for both of those, that they were so open and willing to give to the women's side. And, you know, Burnley are doing great this year, so I'm sure that work is continuing. Yeah, and what's life like in Glasgow, obviously now moving up here, been up here a few months, how much you enjoy the city? Yeah, I really like it. I think it's great. I think there's always something to do and see, and the players have been great, you know, recommending me different walks and coffee shops to see and visit. So I'm trying to see as much of it as I can, and I'm actually really enjoying it. I think it's got a really nice balance of, you know, a bit more sort of, you know, you can go to a bar, or, you know, go to a nice quiet independent coffee shop, and you get both sides of it. So yeah, I'm really enjoying my time. When I was, you know, thinking about coming up here and having the conversation with Joe, there's a lot of things to consider. You know, obviously my partner, she stays at home, you know, she still lives in Coventry, so that's not easy, but we make that work, and she's great, and I couldn't ask for her to be more supportive of what I'm doing up here. And then my mum, I'm really close to my mum, and, you know, I lost my dad a couple of years ago, so knowing that she's going to be on her own now is a decision I had to think about. But again, she's, you know, super resilient and just gets on with things, and actually looks after my dog, because I also had to leave him down south. So yeah, I think they make it really easy for me to be up here, and I know how fortunate I am for that to happen, because that's not always the case for coaches in my situation. So yeah, I think my support network is unbelievable. Yeah, and just now looking to the future, how have you found it so far here, and how much you're looking ahead to what's to come for the rest of this season? Yeah, I think we've been excellent, and I think, you know, I'm really glad that me and Joe have come up here, and how we work and what we do for each other is transferred, because that's not always the case when you go into a new club. So I'm really pleased that that's happened. I think the players have been excellent, and I really hope that we get the rewards that we deserve, and that we do win things, because, as I said, that was my biggest motivator for coming here. It's a big club, it's got a rich history, and we want to add to that history and, you know, bring trophies back.